Hemp and Company, Sustainability, Community, and Succeeding as a Small Business. Hemp and Company was established in 1999, soon after the legalization of industrial hemp in Canada. The company was founded by Bill Finley and Lorna Knowles, with the goal of promoting hemp as a sustainable alternative for a variety of uses, including clothing and things like soap and lotions. Other than just hemp, they focus heavily on interacting with the community and encouraging various methods of sustainability, including reducing waste, using sustainable materials in their stores, and collaborating with other businesses that had similar goals. In the past, Hemp and Company operated another store called Shift Natural Fashion, where they catered more towards a young and trendy demographic. I could not find much information about this store. Now, Hemp and Company serves as a wholesale distributor for their clothing brand, and their retail side has become ION, It's Only Natural, Clothing. They sell their own Hemp and Company brand as well as other small, sustainable brands. All right, so what is hemp? Hemp, also called industrial hemp, is the same species of cannabis plant as marijuana, but it has been bred to have very low amounts of THC, less than 1%. There are different varieties of hemp. Some are harvested for seeds and others are used for the fibers. Hemp that is used for fibers grows very quickly. In 3 to 4 months, it grows to a height of 10 to 12 feet. For reference, hopefully I'm standing on my tiptoes with my hand in the air. The tips of my fingers are at a bit less than 7.5 feet high. Hemp fabrics naturally can be a variety of colors, but they also take dyes very well, which is valuable in the current clothing market. Hemp was among the earliest materials used by humans to make textiles. Rope and sails were two very common items that were frequently made from hemp. In fact, it is said that the first pair of Levi's jeans were made out of hemp sailcloth. Hemp is also a very sustainable plant. It uses a fraction of the water that cotton needs. One of my sources says 1/5, another one it says it doesn't need to be watered at all, but the consensus is that it's a lot less. Due to the way it's processed, it replenishes a large amount of the nutrients that it took from the soil. Hemp is also resistant to pests and weeds, reducing the need for pesticides and herbicides. Hemp fabrics are very strong and durable. They become softer with more use, are resistant to mildew and UV light, and they last for a very, very long time. Hemp can be used for an extremely wide variety of things: paper, food, building materials, bedding, plastic alternatives, clothing, fuel, insulation, water purification. The list truly goes on and on. Well, what's the catch? Unfortunately, there are drawbacks to hemp too. Hemp fabrics can be more rough-feeling than cotton, and they tend to wrinkle more easily. Hemp is also difficult and time-consuming to process. One of the first steps once it's grown is to cut down the stems and leave them in the field to rot in order to separate the fibers. When done properly, this step improves the quality of the fibers, but it takes a long time and lowers efficiency, driving the cost to produce up. There are alternative ways to do this that have their own drawbacks, like labor cost, pollution, and high energy demands. Research continues to find new alternatives for processing hemp, but none are used at a large scale yet. Hemp is not nearly as popular as other fibers, and so it lags behind in terms of technology and scale of production, which also make it expensive and time-intensive to process. Now we need to address one of the biggest problems with hemp. Marijuana was made illegal in Canada in the 1920s under the Opium and Narcotic Drug Act, and in 1938, industrial hemp was prohibited in an attempt to restrict access to THC. It was only legalized for commercial production in Canada in 1998. Hemp was heavily associated with weed and highly stigmatized due to that association. This stunted the growth of the hemp industry severely and enabled other industries to gain a massive head start in areas where otherwise hemp might be an equal but more sustainable option. This includes something like paper. Currently, paper production is specialized for wood pulp, and the facilities used are unable to make hemp paper. This makes it difficult to transition to hemp paper at the same mass scale and cheap price as wood paper. Due to this, industrial hemp is still a small industry. There is a growing number of Canadian hemp farmers, but there are still very few processing facilities. According to the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance, as of 2015, there were no full-size commercial processing facilities for hemp fibers. Now, 8 years later, I wasn't able to find any information on Canadian facilities that process hemp for textiles. Alright, so back to the company. Hemp & Company has a very long history of working with local businesses, associations, and organizations. It was shocking to learn because it doesn't show up on the modern internet, but exploring using the Wayback Machine revealed a long history of collaborating with other eco-friendly entities. I can't possibly go over all of them, but I'll give a few examples. In 2005, founder of the company, Bill Finley, formed the Green Collective with several other eco-friendly businesses, with the intention of working together and promoting one another and supporting sustainable businesses. This collective operated for at least half a decade, but potentially longer. As per Hemp & Company's About Us page in 2006, the company partnered with the Canadian federal government's Eco-Canada program to educate consumers about the sustainability of industrial hemp. At this time, they were also part of the Value-Based Business Network, a group that promoted sustainable business culture and education about sustainable businesses. Hemp & Company have been thanked for their support by the Ancient Forest Alliance in various articles from 2013 to 2021. In 2014, Hemp & Company held an Eco Hero contest. They collected nominations for community leaders in environmentalism and then had people vote for their favorite. That person would win an wardrobe from the company. They did this to acknowledge and incentivize sustainable efforts. That same year, they opened a new store. When assessed by the Vancouver Island Green Business Certification, they got the highest score for a retail business. The entire space was designed with recycled and reclaimed materials, energy-efficient temperature control, efficient lighting, and an incredibly small amount of waste produced during regular operations. If anyone is interested to see the checklist for evaluation, I've printed out a copy. In 2016, one of their stores won a sustainability award. I found multiple sources confirming this, but I didn't find which award it was because the document was restricted. So the company's work in the community is impressive, but what about their fashion? The company states that they work with local designers to create their products. Their fabric is a blend of hemp and organic cotton from China, sent to Vancouver where the garments are constructed, and shipped to Vancouver Island for retail. They specified that the company uses e-bikes or a hybrid vehicle when they can. The clothing they sell is simple and meant to be worn for many years, though they do release new clothing regularly. In an interview, they have said that they pay their retail employees more than minimum wage due to the high costs of living. They felt it was the right thing to do. So what are some of the flaws with Hemp & Company? Previously, I mentioned that the company sources their fabric from China. This is an issue due to the lack of regulations surrounding labor, working conditions, and pollution. Hemp & Company acknowledged this in their About Us page and explained that the alternative would be to source the fabric from a company in Montreal, who still buy their yarn from China. China is the largest producer and exporter of hemp fabrics. They are frequently the only option. Hemp & Company have stated that they went to China to meet with the owners of the factories and requested photos of the worksite and conditions, but have often stated that they are eagerly waiting for a textiles processing facility to open in North America so they can move to a more local supplier. The clothing that they sell is not cheap. Sorting their Originals and Essentials line by price low to high, this basic t-shirt is the cheapest non-sale item at $55. This price is due to the high costs of hemp and the increased cost of working with Canadian clothing manufacturers. The company states that the price is overall not unreasonable because the clothing lasts for such a long time. They do have some items on sale, but they are still rather pricey. Something strange I found during my research was the fact that there was a Bitcoin ATM set up at one of the Hemp & Company locations in 2014. The owner was interested in cryptocurrency and said that it brought in a decent number of new customers. This was interesting to learn considering the immense energy costs and carbon footprint of Bitcoin, although I'm not sure if that was widely known at the time. It appears that the ATM is no longer at the Hemp & Company location, but I was unable to confirm for certain. Now it's time for my final thoughts. Hemp & Company have shown that it is possible to succeed as a sustainable small business. I believe that their success comes from their community engagement and collaboration with other businesses and organizations that promote sustainability. They seem to have changed their marketing tactics as time has gone on. They no longer run a blog on their website, and they don't list many of the organizations and projects that they've worked with. They may have moved towards social media for this type of engagement due to the changing demographics. They are not very transparent. It was difficult to find information about the company on the regular internet. It was incredibly difficult to find information that they didn't write themselves. From my research, Hemp & Company seems to be dedicated to treating people fairly, supporting a wide variety of eco-friendly efforts, reducing their own climate impact as much as possible, spreading the word about hemp as an alternative material, and making clothes that will look good and last for a long time.